What excuse for breaking curfew was so creative you almost let it slide? We had a strict midnight curfew due to elevated terror threats after the Iraq invasion. As the duty sergeant, I was doing my rounds when I spotted Airman Bradley sneaking back to the barracks at Odu 30. Caught him red-handed climbing through a first-floor window. Kid was completely sober, which was unusual. Most curfew violations involved drunk airmen stumbling home from off-base bars. Care to explain why you're 3 hours late, Bradley? Instead of the typical stammering excuses, he straightened up and said, "Sergeant, I was preventing an international incident." I raised an eyebrow. This was new. Bradley proceeded to tell me the most elaborate story I'd ever heard. According to him, he'd been at a local German restaurant when he overheard two men speaking Arabic at the next table. Given the heightened security posture, he thought he should listen in. "I studied Arabic at the Defense Language Institute before my assignment here," he explained. "These guys were discussing coordinates and mentioning American military installations." He claimed he followed them discreetly when they left the restaurant. They drove to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Bradley said he conducted surveillance for hours, taking notes on vehicle descriptions and license plates. "I couldn't just leave, Sergeant. What if they were planning something? I had to gather intelligence." He pulled out a small notebook filled with detailed observations, times, descriptions, even rough sketches of the warehouse layout. The kid had put serious effort into this story. "Then why didn't you call it in immediately?" I asked. "I tried, but my phone died. The warehouse was in a dead zone anyway. No cell towers nearby. I had to wait until they left to ensure I wasn't compromised, then drive back to find a phone." Bradley's story was so detailed it was almost believable. He had answers for every question. When I asked about the men's appearance, he described them perfectly, down to their clothing and mannerisms. He even knew the restaurant's address and the exact time he'd arrived. The problem was, I'd been doing security briefings for months. I knew every legitimate threat in our area. There was no abandoned warehouse where he described. I'd driven past that location countless times during patrols. But here's what impressed me. Bradley had clearly spent hours crafting this excuse. He'd researched local geography, studied intelligence reporting procedures, and created a comprehensive cover story that demonstrated actual knowledge of counterintelligence operations. Bradley, that's the most creative excuse I've ever heard. One problem, though. His confident expression faltered slightly. "The warehouse you described doesn't exist. That location is a shopping center that's been under construction for 2 years. I drive past it every night during patrols." The kid's shoulders sagged. "You actually know the area that well?" "Part of the job." "So where were you really?" Bradley sighed and pulled out his phone. Showed me a text conversation with his girlfriend back in Ohio. She'd been having a panic attack about their relationship. They'd been talking for hours, trying to work through some serious issues. "She was threatening to break up with me, Sergeant. I couldn't just hang up and deal with it tomorrow. She needed me to talk her through it. I lost track of time." I looked at the timestamps on their conversation. Started at 2100, went until 2:15. The kid had missed curfew because he was being a supportive boyfriend to someone having a mental health crisis. "Why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning?" "Because it sounds weak. A real airman should be able to handle his personal life without affecting his military duties." I thought the spy story sounded more professional. I stared at this 19-year-old kid who'd rather make up an elaborate intelligence operation than admit he'd been taking care of his girlfriend's emotional needs. The dedication to the cover story was impressive, but the real reason was actually more honorable. Bradley, taking care of people you love isn't weak. It's what makes you human. Next time, just ask for permission to stay out late for a family emergency. We're not monsters. I should have written him up for violating curfew. Instead, I made him promise to communicate better in the future and sent him to bed. 2 weeks later, his girlfriend flew out to visit. Seemed like a sweet girl. They got engaged 6 months later. Still married, last I heard. Sometimes the most creative excuses reveal something more important than the truth they're trying to hide.